go with it, YouTube. This your boy CJ.
And this your girl RINA.
Make sure y'all subscribe to CJ and RINA. Alright, today we got a reaction video on Jeffrey Dahmer. Or, like I like to say, Jeffrey Dahmer. I think that it sounds a little better right there, you know?
The Milwaukee Cannibal.
Jeffrey Dahmer. I like that. That flows, right?
I mean, it kind of catchy. Dahmer, Dahmer.
Yeah, see? Y'all gonna start saying it, because we're gonna actually put it in the hashtag Jeffrey Dahmer or Dahmer. Whatever which one y'all prefer. Either way it goes. So guys, make sure y'all subscribe below so y'all don't miss any more videos. And also make sure y'all hit that bell icon. So, what? We can get more videos. Anyways, so y'all don't miss more videos. What you was about to say? Oh, nothing? Oh, okay. I thought you was about to say something. My bad. Okay. I know y'all ready. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Let's get it.
Jeffrey Dahmer murdered 17 young men over 13 years. He would cut open his victims for his own sexual pleasure, preserve their severed body parts, and towards the end eat their thighs, biceps and hearts. But how did this once apparently innocent child turn into one of the world's most gruesome serial killers? Did circumstance drive Dahmer to carnage and cannibalism, or was he born to kill?
This is starting off bad. This is our first time watching this. Don't forget that. We haven't even watched the one on Netflix yet.
Oh, what is this? It's like an intro? Okay, I'm going to go over it. Long intro.
It is a long intro.
Okay.
Jeffrey Dahmer was one of the most infamous serial killers of modern times. His name is synonymous with mutilation, necrophilia, and cannibalism.
You think of the crimes that he committed, they're so horrific that you kind of think only a madman or somebody totally evil incarnate would do this. But
right.
When you talked with Jeff Dahmer, you just did not get this idea. He could be engaging, he could be bright, witty, he could make jokes. He was able to fool a lot of people.
People that worked with him had no idea that he was a violent man. This was part of the real danger of Jeffrey Dahmer. He could join you or me at lunch and no one would detect that he was a violent person.
Wow.
Jeffrey Dahmer on the surface was not an abnormal appearing individual. He was fairly good looking, he was well spoken, he was articulate.
Never in a million years would I have guessed a homicidal maniac.
To me, he's always been really a tragic figure, which is kind of hard for a lot of people to understand. But I don't really think of him as, you know, the serial killer monster. I just think of him as this kid who was spiraling out of control and nobody stopped him.
Jeffrey Dahmer grew up in a small rural town of Bath, Ohio, a middle-class boy from Middle America. Robert Ressler, an FBI behavioral analyst and the man responsible for coining the phrase serial killers, was called in to interview Dahmer. His years of experience interviewing serial killers such as John Wayne Gacy gave him a unique insight into Dahmer's mind.
There was no evidence with Jeffrey Dahmer of any severe mistreatment or abuse in his childhood. His mother had a mental problem. She was depressed most of the time.
That's where you get it from.
She slept a lot and dropped out of family activities. The father was a PhD chemist and a very busy and very intelligent man who spent a great deal of his time at work.
Pat Kennedy worked the beat in Milwaukee for over 25 years. Back in the summer of 1991, he was assigned to the Jeffrey Dahmer case and spent 6 long weeks with him. He knew him better than most.
He was a product of upper white middle class. He was educated. He came from a family of means.
Yet the fractures in his parents' relationship left a young Jeffrey feeling isolated. His interests turned to animals. He viewed them very differently to how most children look upon their pets.
He stated when he was a very young child, 7 or 8, he had found a decomposed squirrel, and the bones were there. He kind of took it apart. He said that he found a roadkill and he wanted to see what was inside it, like a raccoon or a dog. He brought that home. A dead dog that he found on the side of the road was hit by a car, cut that open and looked at the insides of that.
Jeffrey started to do this from a very young age.
Wow.
He would roam the surrounding countryside looking for roadkill to add to his growing macabre collection. His fascination with bones would continue into his adulthood, but he would eventually move from animals to humans.
As he got to be about 13 or 14 and he was coming into his sexual awareness, that he had some kissing with another boy in the neighborhood, and he realized that he was attracted to boys. Becoming aroused sexually, and the cutting up of these animals somehow became enmeshed. So what he did as a young man with animals, he eventually did do later on in life with human beings.
They keep showing that picture.
John Backdurf first met Jeffrey Dahmer when they were at school together, here at the Revere High School in the mid-70s. John, professionally known as Durf, has since created a comic book illustrating his teenage years with Dahmer.
Dahmer? Well, he had a pretty rough time here, as did a lot of us. He was a constant victim of harassment and abuse. He was beat up a lot, especially early on. Later, they sort of got bored with him, but early on, I imagine he had it pretty tough.
Dahmer discussed his childhood at length with Robert Ressler. This is the first time these recordings have ever been heard.
I was visiting a friend's house walking back home in the evening, and these three seniors from high school were approaching me in the darkness. I just had a feeling that something was going to happen. Sure enough, one took a really whacked me on the back of my head.
Dang.
When we got to high school, it was when
they knocked him out.
This
Probably brain damage.
incredible freak. With the drinking and erratic behavior.
By this time, Dahmer had discovered that drinking was one way to dull the pain of his confusion over his sexuality and his sinister fantasies.
Did you have problems with daydreaming where you didn't concentrate in school?
Well, junior year, that's when I started drinking, so that was a problem.
Were you ever called on a carpet for that?
A couple times.
Yeah, did you have problems through them?
That was punishment.
Yeah.
Obviously, someone getting drunk at 7 in the morning is not a good thing. Showing up at school just reeking of booze.
Wow.
Jeffrey was a lonely teenager who kept to himself. When he did become the center of attention, it was accidental.
Well, I was on the yearbook staff along with a couple other of my friends, so we would goad Dahmer into sneaking into various photos for the yearbook, and one of those was the National Honor Society, which obviously he was not a member of. And when the advisor caught a look of it as we were pasting it up, he blacked his face out of the photo, which they then ran, which is sort of a symbol of his wasted youth. Just this blacked out face, the boy who didn't exist.
Jeffrey's complex character meant that while seemingly happy to fade into the shadows, he also felt a desperate need to draw attention to himself.
A bunch of us got together and put a pool in of $35, I think it was, for him to put on a performance at the mall of his seizures and epileptic fits and various acts of weirdness.
Is that making fun of him because he had seizures?
I think he was acting like he had it.
Durf also remembers stories of Dahmer.
And took out a pocket knife and slashed it to bits.
I just cleared the
What did I do
fish.
that for? Dahmer responded. I just wanted to see what it looked like.
As a teenager, as an extension of his childhood fascination of dead animals, Dahmer began to construct fantasies of sex with dead or unconscious men.
Dahmer told me that on one occasion he had seen in the newspaper an account of a young man who was killed on a motorcycle. And he fell in love with the individual just from the
He should have just
photograph.
became an orthodontist.
He actually went to the funeral home to view the corpse.
What is it called?
But he became so aroused that he excused himself into the bathroom where he masturbated.
This was also apparent in his fantasy of killing a local jogger.
People at the board.
He thought he could wait in the bushes with a baseball bat. This guy would come by and he'd bonk him in the head and he'd have this guy. And he actually said he went out and waited for the jogger one day with a baseball bat, but he didn't come by that day.
The breakdown of his parents' marriage meant that 18-year-old Dahmer was left alone with his fantasies.
His mom split, and his dad had already left, and he was left alone in the house. But the adults really failed him, there's no question. His parents, his teachers.
Wow, they
Were you pretty upset by that breakup?
I knew it was inevitable.
Yeah.
It was pretty obvious. Yeah, it was upset.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And it was this that led to the death of his first victim.
Dahmer told me that one fantasy that he had was that he would encounter a hitchhiker, and he would have a narrow waist, broad shoulders, a bare chest. He would not have a shirt on, and he would have very little hair on his body. He would pick up this hitchhiker, and that they would have a great time together and all sorts of sexual adventures. He was driving down the road, and he saw his fantasy hitchhiker.
Oh, wow.
The subject of Dahmer's fantasy was 16-year-old Stephen Hicks.
16?
Hicks was a free spirit who was hitchhiking to a summer festival. This was a common form of transport in 1970s Ohio. Little did Hicks know who he would encounter in this car.
He brought the guy home. They had access to alcohol. They were drinking. They got a little intoxicated. But when the guy wanted to leave, Jeff did not want him to leave. He wanted him to stay because he was lonely and also he was intoxicated. He said that when he tried to stop the guy from leaving, a little bit of a wrestling match broke out. And as they were wrestling around, that's when Jeff grabbed the hand barbell and smashed the guy on the head. Now, he said when he hit him, he wasn't thinking, I'm going to kill this guy. I just want to keep him here.
Dahmer cut the body up and placed it in black bin liners. He loaded them into his car and was planning to dispose of them when he was stopped by a police officer for a minor traffic offense.
He got stopped by
As he was
police?
writing him a ticket and came back to give him the ticket for crossing the yellow center line, he, like any police officer, he took his flashlight and flashed inside the car to see if there's any weapons or any contraband, like any good cop. And he saw the 5 bags. And the guy actually said, hey, what's that back there? And he said, oh, that's just some trash I was going to take to the dump that I just didn't get there yet. And the cop gave him the ticket for crossing the center line and left.
This was the first of the many missed opportunities when Dahmer could have been stopped.
Oh my gosh. Poor stupid police.
I guess it was back then it was
This
really
is Dahmer's house. This is where
Right.
he killed his
Nowadays.
first victim. He took it into this crawl space and apparently stripped the flesh off the bones underneath there. And when the cops went in there, turned this light on and the whole thing lit up. Ceiling, floor, walls, everywhere. Just covered in dried blood.
He then smashed the bones up with a sledgehammer, stood in the middle of the woods, and spun in a 360-degree circle, throwing the remains as he turned.
He said for the next couple of weeks he'd read the paper every day to see was there anything about this guy missing or anything. Never did. So he realized, I got away with murder. I killed somebody and nobody knows about it. I'm gay and nobody knows about it. Again, from the very beginning, more secrecy became part of his life. It also tortured him. And that's kind of how it started, and then it just grew from there.
It would be 9 years before Dahmer would kill again. Once he did, he would be unable to stop.
That was amazing. It was amazing, not in a good way, but it was amazing as in, who would expect that?
He really killed this person, got pulled over by the police, and did not get caught. First off, they should have. First off, he was drunk. He was crossing the lines. They didn't even take him out the car and do the DUI check. No breathalyzer. No nothing.
Nothing.
Oh my God! Back in the day, they were sucky police.
Back in the day, that was like, you cross the line, I'm giving you a ticket. That's it.
Oh my God!
He didn't kill again in 9 years. That made it even worse.
So
Like,
nobody found it interesting that he wanted to play with dead animals and cut them open.
as a kid, and then all of a sudden he killed this person that was 16 or younger.
Right, younger than. Wait, did
Young.
they say his age? How old was he?
The kid was 16.
No, but how old was Jeffrey?
I don't know how old he was, but I know for a fact he killed a 16-year-old. And for a parent not to worry about a 16-year-old and put out a missing report,
Right,
nothing.
not worry about their child. So was Jeffrey Dahmer a child killing children?
I don't know, but we just know he was 16 and he killed them. And he was pretty young for a parent not to worry, unless their parent was just like his parents. No, I think he was 18, because that's when his parents left him.
Oh, okay. So he was 18 and he killed the 16. First off, so what was really crazy was the fact that who leaves their child home alone? So the mom left, the dad left. He's there by himself. He's free to do whatever he wants.
They showed what he killed the first victim, and he didn't
At his house.
He didn't kill back in 9 years. But he also cut up the body, so it made it even worse. It was like,
I wondered it. They say his fantasy was to sleep with a dead man's body. I wonder did he do that to the 16-year-old? Like
they say
that
they
was
did
his fantasy.
they did sexual stuff before he killed them. So I don't know. I mean, that was a crazy one right there. That's part one. That was very different. I mean, this is our first time watching Jeffrey Dahmer.
Dude.
Oh
man.
Yeah.
This is getting interesting. I didn't know it was gonna cut off.
I didn't know it was either, but that was very, very, very interesting.
Right.
And that's part one, guys. So make sure y'all actually subscribe and also give your comments below so y'all don't miss part 2.
Yes. Make sure you guys subscribe to CJ and RINA.
Like always, guys, hope y'all enjoyed everything. Peace.